Alrighty, we're gonna keep it moving. So I got product here. The other ones I had were, so we have product, and then I feel like products have updates. So I made an update model. Users can have products and products can have updates. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make an update model. So let's do that. So I'm gonna go back into here. I'm gonna say model, update, like that. You already know I'm copying that ID and that created at, and I'm pasting it here, just like that. I'm also probably gonna add another one here underneath created at called updated at, since you might be able to update updates, I guess. That makes sense. And I'm gonna give that one a date time as well. It doesn't have a default because I don't know when you updated it. So I'm not gonna give it a default. So we got that. What else did I put here? Oh yeah, title, body, status, version. Okay, so I think all updates need to have a title. If we go back and look at the design, the title would be, I got so many of these open. It would be like this thing. That would be the title. So that's why I'm saying, so one of these things is an update. And here's a title for the update. Well, I'm sorry, this whole thing is an update. And one of these things is like the title for it. So we have a title, that's gonna be string. And then we have body, which is also a string. We have status, which is like, if you go back and look at the design, it's like this thing. So like in progress, things like that. Because there's gonna be a finite number of statuses versus just like a bunch of random statuses, I'm gonna use something called an enum. So if you've never heard of an enum before, an enum is basically just like a bunch of constants. That's basically what it is. It's a bag of constants. So I'm gonna say I have an enum called update statuses. And I'm gonna make some. I'm gonna make one called in progress. I'm gonna make another one called, I don't know, shipped. Another one called deprecated. And yeah, I mean, you can make as many statuses as you want. I probably have something different on the site. But so we got the update statuses, and then for status down here, I can say, oh, your type updates statuses. I guess I should just call that update status, not statuses. And then I can give it a default of one of them. I'll say by default, they're all in progress. Okay. And then I have some other things down here like version, string, things like that. So we can add those. So the reason I put versions, I saw in the design that there was like this, some updates at like a version release thing here. So I was like, oh, we should track the version. So that's what I'm tracking, the release there. So, but it's optional because not all of them have it. So I can say version, it's a string, but it's optional. By default, every field is required unless you put a question mark on it. So optional. And then asset, because some updates have an asset. This thing has a GIF. This one also has a GIF. I guess all of these have assets, but maybe you don't have one for one of them. So also going to make that a string because it'll be a URL, and it's also optional. So you can kind of see just like how I'm going through the design, like trying to think about how to model this data. This is actually how I do it in real life. I literally do it this way. I don't know any other way. If you have another way, I'd be super interested in your process because I have to do it this way. Okay. And then now an update belongs to a product, so we got to set up that relationship. So let's do that. So we'll have product ID. That's going to be type string because a product's ID is a string, and that's what we're going to reference there. And then we have product, and I'm going to say that's type product and relation of the fields to product ID who references ID, like that. So product is type product, has a relationship for the product ID field here on the update side, and it references the ID on the product side. And we get the squiggly. We can go back to our terminal. We can run npx Prisma format. And just like that, if we scroll up to our products, we get this update here. I don't want it to be called capital update, and I want it to be plural, so I'm gonna call it updates, like that. And then I think I had one more. So I think I just confused myself. The update is actually this whole thing, but these little things, I think I call them update points. They're just like the little points in the update. I'm not good at naming stuff, but I call it update point. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna call these update points. And this whole thing is an update. So let's do that. So I'll say model, update, point. And I'm getting all three of these, ID created at, updated at, putting them in there. And if I look at an update point, it has, you know, this thing and then this thing, right? So what did I call them here? I think I called them, yeah, name and description. So let's do that. So name is string. We're gonna give it a length here. And then description is also string, but it doesn't have a length because it could be longer. So we got that. Update point. And because update points belong to updates, we have to set up that relationship. So I'll say update ID is type string, and it belongs to an update whose type is update with a capital U. And I'm gonna set up a relationship on the fields for update ID that references the ID field on update. I'm just gonna run my thing again because it's so nice to me. And if I go back to my update, you can see it added update points, lowercase stats, and called it points instead. And there we go. We have a schema. Any questions on this, or just thoughts, opinions on Prisma so far for anyone who's ever interacted with a database?
I love it.
You love it?
Yeah, my bootcamp is teaching document-based like MongoDB, but I jumped ahead for my big project I'm building, and so I've been teaching myself Postgres, and Prisma's been major.
Love it. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, it does make working with relational databases less daunting. That's for sure. I kind of briefly looked at their source code. So they have like a translation layer that basically applies to, they have to write a custom adapter for every database. And their translation layer does the communication of that. So it's like they can't just like, oh, we can support any database. Like, no, someone manually has to go in and write that translation layer and that adapter for that specific database. And I mean, I remember the Mongo one took them months. It took them a long time to make. So I think what they did was they went and hired some of like the best database experts in the world who worked on like these databases and had them write those adapters. Because I saw at one point that they were working with some of those folks. So yeah, it seems like a very tedious thing. But yeah, it's not like, you know, like they're definitely considering best practices for each database, because it's going a database at a time, and it's not so much like, oh, just we're gonna spray and pray every database and you're all gonna get treated the same. Because like even in their documentation, it'll be things like for instance, we're gonna get to migrations. Like you don't need migrations on Mongo, so you just don't even run them, right? There's like, oh, don't even do them. It doesn't make sense. Or things like IDs, you won't need stuff like this in the Mongo one. So it's like you don't need these at all. So like, yeah, they've considered that, and I think they've done a good job.